Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at some weekend games here for you. We've got Saturday's slate up on this video with some best bets for you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. We're also bringing you play props here for those Saturday games as well. So continue to follow along with us throughout these playoffs. We also want you to head to thelines.com. You can check out all of the great written content we have up on the site right now and use the odds finder tool, a really nice little table there to show you guys all the odds available to you from all these books giving us bets this postseason. We are recording this on Friday, getting ahead of these Saturday lines with you guys, but we are looking, we also had some picks there on Thursday night that went pretty well as the Dubs and Lakers played. About 4-2 on the night with our picks there. A few of the props. It was a weird start to the game when Kevon Looney kind of came out and was ruled not eligible to start. Clearly was hampered by an illness that he had. So that just kind of made everything weird. But the Dubs prevailed like we thought they would, as we had their money line and a bunch of bets as well. So we will move on to today's slate here, Nate, and start with your first best bet for Saturday's games here.
It's actually for the entire series here, with the Warriors taking a wide look after they dominated. I mean, it's actually the 15th straight time that the home team is, after losing game one, won game two. So I don't think we need to read too much into it. It happens all the time. But I mean, already liked the Warriors in the series. Josh talked about them losing game one, winning the series. So right now, if you didn't tail him on that, you could still get about half the odds for the Dubs to win in 6 games or less. So Dubs minus 1.5 to win the series, plus 225 at FanDuel. I also placed this bet where I Dubs exactly in 6, which is plus 420. And then put a little extra on just Dubs to win the series at minus 130. So it's the same kind of strategy where you're covered. If they win in 7, you're not going to lose money. But if they do win in 6, or, if they do win in 6, then you're making a double profit. If they win in 5, I don't really expect that necessarily. I expect the Lakers to probably get one more game. But, looking at how they adjusted in game 2, it was really the return of the death lineup, right, Josh? I mean, with basically Draymond at the 5 and a superior form of Harrison Barnes and Andrew Wiggins at the 4. And Wiggs was a plus 35, played great defense on LeBron. LeBron made us look silly for hitting 3 threes in the first half, but that's really all he had going for him. And really the Lakers, besides him, were just completely sleepwalking. Nobody could hit a shot. Nobody got to the free throw line until late in the first half. That's obviously the biggest advantage they were able to press in game 1, is AD just dominating. He was not able to dominate against this undersized lineup. As we've come to understand, he will just alternate between a big game and then needing to rest. And the Lakers, as an old team in general, needing to rest. And now they have a pretty quick turnaround here. They had to fly back down California. Only one day off between every game in this series. So I'm just why I'm not trusting them to win both games in LA by any means, and then probably lose at the Warriors. Basically, the longer this series goes on, the more you have to favor the Warriors, who somebody pointed out, like, just this looks like a rec league or like a YMCA pickup run at this point, where like the Warriors have all the college kids and the Lakers are like the old hats who like just want to slow it down and post up, and they're like, hey, stop running around us. And yeah, I mean, love getting White Dante in there more. Moody, great minutes, but they could, Kerr has other cards to play. And if he doesn't want to play Moody as much, more GP2, who has great net rating in these lineup combinations, more Poole if he has it going, but he can easily go away from him. And as we know, the biggest change was starting JaMychal Green, which I don't know how sustainable him having 15 points in 13 minutes is not, but it's getting Looney out of there. I mean, and their offense was struggling with both Looney and Dre on the floor. They had a 97 offensive rating in game 1. And so it's like, instead of meeting the Lakers' strength with bigs, right, let's just go to our strengths. And that's why the Warriors were champions before they got Kevin Durant. Why they're perennial contenders is because they were willing to go away from that and be like, okay, try to punish us down low. Like, just try it. Like, we've got Draymond Green. We've got another great rebounder in Wiggs, and then try to guard us on the other end, which you're not going to be able to. And the Lakers, going back home, but like, do they have a home court? I mean, since the All-Star break, they're scoring like 6 points per game fewer, getting 3 fewer free throw attempts at home. They have great defensive numbers in the playoffs because they're playing Memphis, which doesn't travel and doesn't shoot. But I mean, the Dubs, kind of dispelling their road home issues in the playoffs, they're actually like the best defense, best 3-point defense, fourth best defensive rating. Only allowing 3 more points on the road versus the horror show we saw in the regular season. So I trust the Dubs to get this one, or one of the next two. Like, I'm not even betting on this game necessarily, but one of the next two, and then to win, and then to close it out in 6, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you did this. There's so many games going on every day right now. I mean, sometimes there's one a day, but my main point is we were not able to necessarily get a video out about some of these playoff series prices before we got into the conference semis. So I'm really glad that you're bringing some of these series notes, because I want to actually talk about your bets through the lens of like the joke we were making earlier that Haralabob made on the Bill Simmons podcast a while ago, where he was talking about how if you think a team is if you want to take a playoff series price, whatever, like go ahead and hit a team to win a series. But if you think they're going to win 4 of 7 games at the worst, then like, shouldn't you just bet their money line every game? And 4 times out of 7, you're going to make money. Those numbers add up to profit. So like, I would actually just continue. Like for me, as you mentioned, I already hit this before the series started, knowing that no matter what happened, if the Lakers won game 1, and the Dubs win the series, I'm good. So if the Lakers won game 1, I don't really got to continue to find the juice on the Warriors series prices. So I just keep hitting their money line. And I think that's if I continue to do that, especially if they're going to have plus money on their money line right now, like they do because they're away. And that's just kind of how it goes. The home team in game 3, who just played 2 on the road, is coming back with a revitalized crowd at their back, etc. So a lot of times those teams win that game. But it's the same concept of what I was talking about in that Denver and Phoenix series. I hit Denver at plus 105. I didn't get there early enough to get it at like plus 120 where it opened, which was bananas. But I picked Denver plus 105 to win the series. So I'm just betting their money line the rest of the way, especially because I think they're going to win in 5. And I love all your stuff here with the Dubs in 6. The Dubs in 7 is also plus money, right? So like my thought was something similar to what you're doing here, where you just bet both of those as well. But for me, specifically sitting here waiting on my 6-1 for the Dubs to now win the series after they lost game 1, I have some room to kind of double down and press that a little bit, not necessarily double down, but press on that a little bit by picking them maybe in 6 or 7 at this point. If I get both of those, I could also just, both of those at plus money, I'm still going to win some profit there as well. So play it safe if you want to. I still think it's going to be a great series. I think the Dubs in 6 at plus 420 is awesome, but I could definitely see this series going 7 as I predict. So that's a very long-winded way of saying my second pick or my first pick here, Nate, which is just that I want to take the Dubs money line in this game. And like I said, you'll probably be seeing me hit that the rest of the way. We had also talked about taking their points at over 112.5. I still think that's a great bet. I mean, they've done that 5 of 7 in these playoffs at this point, or 7 of 9 times in these playoffs at this point. They've played 9 games. Clay's cooking. I'm going to continue to fade him. I'm sorry. It's part of the reason that I can't necessarily in good consciousness feel great about an over 112. But I mean, they still could have, they got 127. He had a bunch of points, obviously, as he went off in that one with like 7 made threes. But at the same time, like there was some, regression in other places. First of all, I don't know how many more games you're getting from Jordan Poole. Maybe there's one more in there, but I kind of wish I would have just faded him on air instead of just on my own and told people about it. I don't know why I kept quiet about fading Jordan Poole and how much I hated him in game 2. After a good game 1, my buddy Tim, God bless him, bet on him to get over 20 points in a parlay, and I tried to stop him. He wouldn't listen to me. At any rate, Tim, I hope you're watching this and don't make that mistake again. But I would prefer the Dubs money line in this game, and like I said, just have that be my strategy rather than necessarily worrying about how many points they are or are not going to get at this point. But part of this is also based on fading LeBron's points once more, which I will continue to do, as well as with the assists. I'll talk about that in player props, but that's another solid contributor to this under, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, hate Jordan Poole. What a little pest. But I mean, the Warriors are probably better off just playing more Dante and GP2, like I'm saying, who can D up and who can keep the offense moving with fluidity, and they don't need Poole with Clay cooking like he is, hitting 52% of his threes so far in this series. Now goes to LA, where his dad's on the call, and I guess Josh was incorrect to say like he'll be tight because of that LA history. He is actually lighting it up because he's finally seems to be back. But we'll stay away from shooting guard props for a little while for Josh, and move on to a series that's the first game here on Saturday and should be tight. And look, I mean, this isn't my my pick necessarily, but I am looking at the Heat series line, which I got at -120. I see now at -116 at FanDuel. Because basically there's not a lot to say about this other than Jimmy Butler is the playoff god. And he's back now. He got a full 3 days off, 3.5 before this game starts to rest that ankle. He should be back. Miami almost won without him. They have a better coach. So, period. My game 3 pick specifically here is either team to win by 7 or less, which is +110. And that's what every analyst is saying about this series is they expect a lot of clutch time, right? A lot of close games down the stretch, which isn't really that going out on a limb considering how the Knicks play, right? They play so slow. They have 9 minutes of clutch time in these playoffs. It's a 90 pace. Miami has a very fast pace in clutch time, mostly because they were furiously coming back to beat the choking Bucks. But they will also play slow down the stretch. At home in the playoffs last few years, they only average 107. The Knicks are averaging just 97 on the road right now. So, I mean, it's a game with a 206 total. It's hard to imagine it goes under. Oh, is it 208?
Yeah, it's 208.5. I was like, is it really? I'm taking it over.
Yeah.
But no, it's
hard to imagine either way that it goes under and that it's a double-digit game in either direction. Like, this is what we expect. I mean, especially when you have the Knicks unable to hit threes, 4.5 threes per game at 34% on the road. Miami seems like unsustainably hot from three. I mean, their 2 home games against Milwaukee, 45%, hit nearly 15 threes. That's why they scored 120. I mean, at home in the playoffs, over like 20 games the last 3 years, they hit 11 at 33%. The Knicks are also the number 1 3-point defense, or number 2 in these playoffs, allowing 33%. Both these teams elite denying free throws. Both these teams elite denying paint points. And the Knicks are depending on free throws for their offense because Jalen's so crafty, etc. They're also depending on offensive rebounds down the stretch, and neither of those are really going to be available. Knicks are actually scoring a quarter of their points in the fourth quarter, 25% at the free throw line. And that's just not going to happen against Miami, which is only allowing 16 free throws at home so far here in the playoffs. And more of why I kind of like the series. Miami is just better in the clutch. But for this game, let's look at New York as road dogs, -1 margin of victory. They're 17-15 on the season. When they have 2+ days off, they're 500 as well. Very close games. Miami is home favorite, 26-12, but just a +1 margin of victory. And on 2 days rest, also near 500 close. So like this is this spot where all season they've fluctuated a little bit, but when they're playing good teams, I feel like it is a single-digit game for both of these teams, and the way they match up with each other, I just find it hard to believe that either team will run away.
Yeah, I mean, if we're both feeling an under pretty heavily, an under. We're both feeling like the game isn't going to get very many points, but that doesn't mean there's going to be an under because of the low total at this point. So with the theory of, obviously slightly fewer points than the other games in this series, well, at least the other 2 Western Conference games, I think you look at the underdog in that situation. It's very risky always to take a favorite with an under or anything like that. But I know you're not necessarily going under here. It's just if this thing stays close, it's because there's also not that many points being scored. There's not going to be a barrage of threes necessarily. I mean, even though the Heat are scoring all their points off three, they're still playing at, like, even with Jimmy in there, they're playing at a 94 pace, right? And so that's still slow enough to keep this thing below, 211, 212, which is a low scoring game at this point in the NBA. And it's actually a high scoring game for the Heat and Knicks in their history. But like now we're in a different place. And I love what you brought up because, I'm actually just going to go right into my play here and talk about a teaser that I'm going with, because I think it's a similar vibe of what you're talking about. Like, I think this is going to be close. I don't know if the Knicks are going to keep it within 4 or if they're going to win necessarily, but I don't think they get blown out by more than like 7.5, right? Which is what they're at 3.5. So if I tease this line from Knicks to 3.5 to 7.5, and then I tease the total down to 204.5 and get even money there on pretty much every book that I would do that on, then I'm feeling pretty good about that as well. I mean, this is just another way to play the stuff that you were just talking about. And I love what you brought up, because I was going to talk about it as well, which is clutch time fast play, and also, coming out in the first quarter. But I think it was really interesting that in the first two games, the first and fourth quarters are the fastest. Like, first is usually the fastest quarter, played at the fastest pace of any quarter in most NBA games when teams come out super fresh, and also just kind of like get a feel for defense. Some guys get open shots, whatever. But in the fourth quarter, it's incredible that both teams actually used an increased pace to try to come back, and actually successfully come back in both games. Heat were down in game one, played at 102 pace in the fourth quarter, came all the way back, won that game. It started coming back in the third quarter too, where they played faster. And then in game two was the same concept, but just reversed that with the teams there. The Knicks needed to come back. They scored a bunch of points in the fourth quarter as well, as you mentioned, scoring a lot of free throws in that game too, where they got 29 free throw attempts in that, or 30 free throw attempts in that game after 20 in game one. And like you said, like 10 of those coming in the fourth quarter. So a lot of things like the pace speeding up, the points going up because guys are getting to the foul line in the fourth quarter as well. I know the Heat don't necessarily foul that much. They're great at not turning the ball over, and they're great at not fouling. That's pretty much how they got into these playoffs in the first place, was by doing that and hitting some threes here and there. But they were one of the worst offenses in the league. Now they're just back up to hitting a bunch of threes. Like I said, for some reason their reserves turned into the Phoenix Suns from the middle 2000s for some reason. But that just continues to help the total continue to be over. It was looking like it might be an under in game two, but in game one, I kind of felt like it was always the over was always going to hit because Jimmy's out there and they're playing faster with Jimmy. Like I said, 94 pace with him in game two, 94 pace with him in game one, 90 pace without him in game two. And so, I do think that he's going to come back and be good, but Randall's also back. And I think he's back. And the Knicks with Randall and, in these playoffs are scoring close to 110 a game, without him 101. And that was in like 1.5 games. But his on-off stuff is like they're not scoring without him because they don't have a legit second option. Quentin Grimes is still hurt, so as good as he is on defense, he's not the shooter that he was at times during the regular season. Emmanuel quickly can't get on the floor for more than 15 minutes. I haven't dove into that enough to go, why is Emmanuel quickly not even relevant in these playoffs or in this series anymore, especially with Quentin Grimes hurt? Something about him Tibbs doesn't trust, continue to just need that, just makes Julius Randle even more important to them being able to score, and he will be out there, and we'll talk about him in player props as well, because I think he'll contribute to this game going over and the Knicks keeping it within 8 points.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of why I don't like the Knicks in the series, because they really have such limited choices to score the basketball. RJ Barrett will come out strong and then just fade away. And then it's really just like, Randall and Brunson. And it's not saying the Heat have a really balanced attack, but what they do have is a genius offensive coach who will just set up plays for guys who are knockdown 3-point shooters. And all of a sudden, the confidence that they showed in game two, Gabe Vincent is an all-star. So that's another offensive option. Look, your pick is almost the exact same thing here. It's just, I guess what you're hedging against is the Knicks winning by over 8. Otherwise, it's basically just the same thing without needing the over. If you take my pick, just saying.
Yeah, no, you're right. Where I'm coming from as a Knicks fan, who it sucks because these whole playoffs, if I bet on the Knicks, they lose, and if I bet against them, they win. So I'm in a kind of a tight bind here with that. So I'm just kind of leaving myself the option that they could lose and I still win. They could win and I still win money. But even if they lose, I'm still good. So any rate, that's all the time we have for you in this Best Bets video. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Check out the play-up props we have up for you as well for Saturday's slate. And until we see you next, happy betting.